And hello. Hello there. I'm trying to get my hair all straight. Oh, I need to turn my phone off. Let me do this because I do not want to be bothered. Yeah, there we go. Phone's off. Don't have to worry about it going beep, beep. So, bye. It just gave me one last angry buzz, like, you asshole. So, well, you know who this is. You better know who this is. You wouldn't be on this channel watching if you didn't know who this was. And I'm a little sweaty and a little tired because at 6:30 this morning I was out doing laps. I went over to the Hack parking lot, which now has a lot more stones than it did before. And I think that's because they've been paving the road. What is it? Industrial Avenue, I think. They've been laying down new asphalt. So cars coming into the lot are picking up all these stones. And I found a couple of places where it was just like, oh my God, it's like skating through a minefield. I'd hit those and just go flying. But the deal was I took my portable camera out. It's not portable. It's my Canon camcorder that I've had for a few years now. And I went out and skated laps, working on my form. I wasn't working on time. I was working on my form. I did my first 27.5 official one Wednesday night since getting out of jail. And it wasn't good. It was I skated 550. It wasn't good. There was a couple of times where I actually felt like I was going to fall over. I had no rhythm. I couldn't get it. And there was a skater who was coming back from an injury. Well, actually, she'd been off for a long time, like 6 months. So she's going through a recertification program as well. And she passed me like 5 times. I knew she would. So I just like slid over and was like pointing at the inside lane, telling her, go ahead and take it. I stayed out of her way. If there is any complaint I can have about the 27.5, it's when you're out there with another skater. Half the time I will just slow up and let a faster. If I know someone's like way faster than me, I just slow up and just let them go by, and it kills my time. But that's just me. That's what I do. I actually prefer to be out there alone. And then again, when you're out there by yourself, your mind starts to wander. There's just, let's just face it. Anyone who's watching this who knows Derby knows the 27.5, 27 laps in 5 or fewer minutes is the most contentious minimum skills requirement. Minimum required skills, your MRS, you have to have these to certify. It is the most ridiculous goddamn thing we have to do. It seriously is. I know that there was a blog post going around last week by someone. I don't know if it was a guy or not who wrote it. I didn't pay attention. I don't think it was written by a guy. But their argument was, well, it shows how in control you are when you're exhausted. We're never going to be out there for more than 2 minutes at a time. I have actually, during scrimmage practice, skated like 3 consecutive jams that went on for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And I was never as tired doing that as I have been doing a 27.5, and I see that, and you're sitting there going, you get to rest for like 30 seconds. There's that, it's a mental thing. It's that 30 seconds in between where you get to recycle. And if you have a large enough roster, say you have a full 15 people, the chances are pretty good you're going to be working with a rotation of 3 jammers, 3 pivots, and 9 blockers. It's just going to work out that way. You're going to have a full contingent. So the chances are pretty good that if you've got a full 15-person roster, unless someone's injured, you're going to be getting at least 2 minutes of rest between each jam. I mean, really, it's going to work out because of the 30 seconds in between. You're going to end up getting about 2 minutes worth of rest between each jam. So then you go out and you work your ass off. Even if you go a full 2 minutes, you come back and you rest for 2 minutes. Now, yeah, granted, I've seen games where you had 9 people out on the floor all the freaking time and you did get exhausted. Yeah, that happens. But that has nothing to do with the 27.5. I hate it. I really do. It's like, and I know so many other skaters who are of the same opinion that it's just like, why do we even have to do this? Especially if you're a blocker, big blockers. And I can see pivots, but still, it's just one of those things. It's like so much emphasis is put on it, and it just drives you crazy. In my case, literally. I'll talk about that in a bit, but no, I didn't. It did put a lot of pressure on you. You start obsessing about it. And it's fun because I was talking to people in a couple of my groups. I'm in one derby group for players over 40 and another group which is just all trans players. And in the trans group, some of the players were even saying that their team just completely said, fuck it. We just don't do it. They have you do something else. There was one player who said her league, they make the jammers skate to 27.5 because they feel that, that's needed. But blockers and pivots have to skate at 25.5, and then they have to be able to push someone halfway around the track in a certain amount of time. Which I'm down for because I could do that. Yeah, she said, and blockers do the same thing. They just okay, you start at coming out of one turn and you have to push another person all the way down a straight and through the next turn. And I guess they give them a minute and a half or something like that. I forgot what the time was, but they said, yeah, they just do that. And they only make their jammers do 27.5s. But there were 3 or 4 players who posted and said their leagues, they absolutely cheat on the 27.5. They just, they'll basically give their players another skill set to use. And if they pass that, then they mark it down and say, yeah, you passed your 27.5. I'll tell you, it is going to be the death of me. This is something I have been screwing around with. Coming up on, I think I did my first 27.5 in August of last year. So this is 10 months I've been fucking with this thing. And the bitch of it is, if I pass it this month, in 6 months I got to turn around and do it again. Because you have to go through recertification at the beginning of the year. So in January or February, I got to do another 27.5. It's just holy shit. And all I'm ever going to be is a blocker. I mean, I would love to be a pivot. And as a pivot, I wouldn't get, I could never get the speed some of our jammers get. But if I hit your fucking wall going 10 miles an hour, you're going to know it. Because I weigh 100 pounds more than most of our jammers. I may not hit a wall as hard as our jammers, and they hit the wall pretty hard. But I weigh about 100 pounds more, and that does count towards something. The amount of kinetic energy released is 1/2 mass times velocity squared. So me having, say, 50 kilograms or 40 kilograms on most of our jammers, I only get to use like half that mass for determining kinetic energy. But still, if I can get close to your speed and I hit the wall, you're going to feel it. It's going to hurt. Yeah, that was one thing I learned from Lacey Knight's clinic. She actually said, and I mean to go back and take a look at some of the footage she's done of jamming, but she actually said on her team, the jammers and the pivots are told to, not basically kill themselves getting around the track, skate like a normal fast lap. And then when you get within about 30 feet or 10 meters of the pack, you just go into a sprint and hit them as hard as you can. And she says that has a tendency to really fuck things up. Because you have to remember, the faster you go, the more energy you're actually releasing. Your mass counts towards something. But in my case, if I weigh 40 kilograms more than most of the other jammers on my team, I'm only actually getting to add 20 kilograms of that mass because it's 1/2 mass times velocity squared. So I'm only getting to add half that mass to the equation. But if I'm only going like 3 kilometers slower, it levels out. And nobody wants to see a 240 pound. Nobody wants to see a 240 pound jammer coming at you at like 12 miles an hour on skates. It's like, you think about it, it is a bit psychological because you see most of the jammers are thin and wiry and quick. And, more getting, one of the jammers from York, she works out all the time. And if she hits your line, you're going to know it because she's fast, but she's also solid. She's built like a truck. She's not huge and like me, but she's very muscular. And if she hits you, woo, you know it. I've been hit by her. I know what it's like. It's going to hurt. It will. She will. She'll hit you hard. That's one of the things with the York jammers. I do notice they do that. They do hit the line real hard. They go into it like bang. They hit it hard. So I don't know. I'll get through it. I'm going to build my time up. I was up I know the fastest I've skated so far in a group pack was 5:13.6. So I can do it. It's just a matter of getting out there and putting it all together and getting it out of my mind. And one of the things when I was taping today, I noticed is that your mind, I keep track. I have it's actually a pitch counter, but you can use it to count laps. And I was using it Wednesday night and I started looking at it like right away because I was fucking up my laps. My form was bad. I was tired. That's the other thing. You skate 50 laps. I know some people say, well, you want to go in warmed up. I don't disagree with that. But when I taught aerobics, and I taught aerobics for a couple of years. My version of a warm-up is a lot different than somebody else's. Some of the versions I've heard of warming up in derby. And it's like when someone says, well, skating 80 laps is okay. You want to get your muscles warmed up. In aerobics, that's not a warm-up. That's your workout. That's the workout, baby. Seriously. It is interesting. I do agree. You want to go out there, you want to get your muscles warmed up. But I mean, I'm working off of when I used to teach aerobics and how we would build up to our maximum cardio and then come down from that. Yeah, I skated like 50 laps Wednesday night and my legs were feeling it. They were feeling it a lot. Yeah, they were hurting. So they were a little wobbly. I get like that. Plus, I've been having problems with my back, and that's because I've not been skating in position. So I'm not tightening my core. I'm not getting in the proper position, and it's putting a lot of stress on my lower back. And the last couple of times I've skated, my lower back began locking up, and when it locks up, it becomes so painful. I can't hardly move my legs. I mean, that's really how bad it gets. Is that I'm trying to move my legs and it's like you can't because you're trying to push through so much pain and you can't. Lower back issues, old muscles, this is what happens when you're 61 years old and you're trying to compete. But I've knocked people on their asses, so I'm not too... I can still knock them on their asses, so I'm not that bad. Don't get down on yourself. And that leads into the next thing. This week has not been my best week. It's been tough. I had to fight through. I mean, I was practice Wednesday night. I was not in the best of mood when I got out of practice. I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling down. I came home. I had a good cry. I was actually crying as I was walking out of the rink, I was crying. Yeah, it was not a good one. Thursday was not that great. Yesterday was not that great either. Last night I went out to dinner alone again, naturally. Hey, that sounds like it could be a song title. Actually, it is, but you have to go back to like the fucking Stone Age when I was a kid to find that song title. It was actually a title of a song, Alone Again Naturally, which was nominated for Best Song of the Year by the Grammys. But you shouldn't put too much, shouldn't put too much faith into that because, let's face it, the album Sailing by Chris Cross, or Christopher Cross, shouldn't say Chris Cross, it's a different group. Christopher Cross won Album of the Year over Pink Floyd's The Wall. Okay. And Sugar Sugar by the Archies was Best Song of the Year, beating out the Beatles and the Stones, I believe. The Archies, yes, studio group, recorded shit for a cartoon. Or as Sam Kinison would say, they're not even a real fucking band! You fuck! Yeah, okay, let's get back. But anyway, this week has been real tough because if you've been following the news, if you've been on Facebook or you watch TV or read the papers or whatever the hell it is you do to get your information, you'll know that there were a couple of real high-profile suicides, both within a few days of each other. And they were both fairly well-known people in their areas. I mean, Kate Spade in the fashion area, and Andrew, I'm going to screw up his name. Let me look it up because I always end up screwing his name. Yeah. Anthony Bourdain. I always end up screwing his name up. Yesterday it was announced that he died at age of 61, which is my age, A lot of people are pointing to the fact that his last restaurant endeavor, he was having some legal issues with it. And it turned out that in the case of Kate Spade, she had been battling depression for years, decades actually, and it finally just got the better of him. You know, I learned coping skills when I was in the unit. I learned how to kind of push that shit away. You know, you want to learn. You want to recognize your own issues. You want to recognize what brings on a depressive moment. You want to know what is likely to lead towards you delving into suicidal ideation. So you have these different coping skills. You know what your triggers are, and you have these different coping skills to work off of. But seriously, when you hear shit like that, you know, 2 high-profile suicides, literally back to back. I think they were within like a couple of days of each other. From people who are like the last people in the world you would expect to do this sort of stuff. It fucks with your head. It really does. I mean, I've said this, I've spoken before about how I felt when Tony Scott and Hunter S. Thompson killed themselves and how it affected me. Even in Tony Scott's case, I wasn't a huge fan of his. But to me, it was like, you know, your brother's Ridley Scott. You've directed some rather successful films in your life. And then you just drive out to the middle of a bridge and do a high dive. And Hunter, I knew his issue was he was suffering. You know, he wasn't happy with his life. He was in pain from a hip surgery, and he just felt like everything was over. And it was. And he decided to end it. And the same thing with Anthony and Kate is when high-profile people like that, people who are looked up to in their fields, people who have the assets available and the help available to sort of put that stuff aside. You know, when they decide it's time, so I've just had enough, I'm not going to go on any longer. When they do stuff like that, you start thinking, what chance is there for me to make it? And Anthony is 61. You know, when you see that, it's 61. He was the same age as me. Now, I don't know if like he was closer to 62 or what. I haven't checked his birthday, but I should. Let me do that real quick. I'm going to do that. I hate to do this. I'm sorry. Yeah, he was coming up on 62. So his birthday was coming up June 25th. So he was coming up on 62. So he was almost a year older than me. Almost 2 months. He was almost, you know, I was like, he was coming up on 62. So, but still, you hear 61 and you go, oh, shit. Anyone else we know just turned 61? It really is. And that was part of what was yesterday. I was really kind of like holed up for part of the day yesterday because I was sitting there thinking about it. It's like, shit, if this guy, you know, decided I can't take it anymore, you know, it's time for the end to come. What hope do I have? It kicks your ass. It really puts you in a frame of mind of like, I haven't got a chance. And it still does. I mean, my moods still fluctuate wildly. When I was out doing practice laps, I can point to some of the stuff that's on the tape that I'm getting ready to download after this. And I'm certain that, you know, you can see the differences between 2 tapes when I'm talking. You know, my mood is swinging. I still have that issue. I'm still trying to get a goddamn shrink. You know, This is the kind of shit I'm falling into. And one of the statistics that the CDC has been posting is that suicides are up like 20, I think it's 20% in the last year. Well, shit, why not? I mean, look at me. I've been out of work for 6 months. I've had like 3 recruiters call me. One called this week and gave me he talked about the speech, and then the last thing he asked was, well, what did you make at your last job? And I told him, and I'm not going to be shy about it. I made $38 an hour at my last job. Now that's gross, not net. I was making $38 an hour gross. So, I had to pay my taxes and everything else out of that. And then he ended off and he said, well, if I see another opportunity come through, I'll send it to you. I don't think this is the right opportunity for you. When a recruiter tells you that, what they're saying is basically, you're probably not going to work here because you're not going to get the salary you want, which led me to believe that they were looking for somebody who could manage and do a lot of travel on their own around the state for probably about $40,000 a year. That's what they say when they go, I don't think this is the right opportunity for you. What they're basically telling you is you're not going to accept the pay offer. You'll probably take the pay offer just so you can start getting some money coming back in, and then you're going to turn right around and look for another job, which has been known to happen in this business. Yes. I knew one guy who did that and immediately turned it around to like 6 months later. He had 3 different companies were begging him to come and work for him. I never had that happen. I don't know how these guys ever did that. Could get like one interview and then their foot's in the door and they're ready to go. I've never been able to do that. It must be my sterling personality. But anyway, it is tough. It is tough when you see people who you think of as, well, they had everything going for them, decide to just take it off. It doesn't put you in the best of moods. And that was part of what I was dealing with Thursday. I was feeling pretty down. And then, having to deal with hearing about other shit, people killing themselves and stuff like that. It does put you in a frame of mind of like, I haven't got a chance. Why am I doing this? Why am I holding off as long as possible? And I think the answer there is because you're not ready to give up. When I was pre-unit, let's just put it that way, before I went into the unit, I had given up. I really had. I just didn't want to go on anymore. And I had given up. It's not an easy thing to admit to. But there does come a time when you do feel that there's so much pain in your life and there's so much hopelessness that you don't see any point in continuing. And maybe that's what these people were going through as well. Because let's face it, socioeconomic pressures aside, the rich don't have a monopoly on having the best mental health. I mean, look at the Gettys, they're all fucking nuts. Prove me wrong, seriously. But I mean, yes, they have access to therapists. They have access to the best medication. They can go to really nice places, units. They're not really units. They're more like a condo getaway, where you've got somebody watching you. But still, you're living a hell of a lot better than what I had when I was over at the behavioral therapy unit. But in the end, that shit still gets to you. It's not all about money, and it's not all about healthcare. It's really about whether or not you're willing to go on. I made the decision to go on at that point. When it came time, I know I'm messing with my wig. I need a new wig real bad. When it came time to decide what I wanted to do, I decided to go on. I didn't have to. I really didn't. I didn't have to. But I decided to give it a shot. And I have been better. Yeah. The last couple of days was a bit of a slip. And even this morning, I was feeling kind of down. I feel better now. I think it's just, you need little successes every now and then to help you realize that you are moving forward and you are improving. And you have to keep up with your med schedule, and you have to go see your doctors when you have them, and you can go see them. Hell, I imagine even for like rich people, they've got a months long waiting list to get in to see psychiatrists. Because right now, well, it always has been. It's just not right now. I mean, right now we're in a crisis in terms of mental health care. But mental health care has always been looked at as a fucking joke in this country. When I first started getting into counseling and therapy, happened back in Indiana, and one of the things my counselor back there said was she hated this Midwest ethos of, oh, just suck it up and keep on going. And which is true. You know, you weren't allowed to be depressed. You had to just suck it up and keep on going because everybody had it hard. And it's that sort of attitude that just pisses all over anybody who has mental health issues. You know, I suffered from depression. I suffered from GID. And this wasn't anything I could talk about when I was a kid. One of the most scarring things that ever happened to me, and this is a true story. My mother, who was a nurse, who had actually had a degree in psychology and who had worked in a behavioral therapy unit at one point, back when they were more like the snake pit than they are today. But yeah, she worked in one. When I was 17 years old, I was really going through a tough time with shit at school. And I finally I was having issues with testing and something else I was supposed to do. And I was like crying out to her. And I finally just told her, I said, if you leave the house, I'm going to kill myself. And she smirked at me. She smirked. It wasn't until I told her a second time that I was going to do it that she actually stayed and helped me try to cope with what was going on. And she did so from a distance. But I'll never forget that first time when I said, if you leave the house, I'm going to kill myself. And she just like that. This is exactly how she did it. I mean, that's your own parent. And when I talk about the fact that I had issues with my mother that didn't come out until much later, that's some of the shit I'm talking about. You know, your kid is threatening suicide and your first reaction is to like smirk at them because they never believe. I mean, let's just put it this way. There could be flames shooting out of my room and I could come out and go, my room is on fire. And one of my parents would have asked my sister to go look to see if it was true because they always thought that everything I said was like a falsehood or that I was exaggerating or some shit like that, you know. They were the ones that really kind of beat into me the attitude, you shouldn't say stuff like that because people don't like to be told they're wrong. So I finally got to the point where I really got beat up so much that I began guarding like everything I said. And of course, that meant you couldn't come out and say things because you were afraid. I spent, God, so many years afraid. It was like I told someone the other day, or I mentioned the other day, that I didn't transition until after my mother was dead, basically because I was afraid of what my mother was going to say. And I know what she would have said. She would have never accepted it. Or as my sister once said, well, she would have given you the benefit of the doubt. This is not a benefit of the doubt type of shit, you know? Transitioning is not one of those things, oh, we're just going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're not bullshitting us. But I don't think my mother would have ever accepted me. I think she would have just, kept dead naming me and all this other shit. And would have been going on with, oh, it's just so difficult not to call you by that name because, that's your right. That was the name they gave you and all this. She would have raised all sorts of shit. I know she would have. So I'm kind of rambling right now. But I'm better today. I also wrote 7 recaps in 5 days, which it's a hell of a lot of work. And yesterday I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the final episode of Sense8, after which I got breakfast and turned around and wrote a 2,700-word recap, including a 11-minute video, which included an 11-minute video at the end. I worked my butt off yesterday. I went to bed probably about 11 o'clock, 11:30 last night. In the middle of the day, I took about a 45-minute nap. I worked my ass off this week writing. So be a little easier this week. I'm actually going to try getting back into the novel this week. I've got some times that I can set aside, so I'm going to try getting back into it and try starting that up again. So we'll see what happens. I keep saying I'm going to do that, and I don't do it. I need to do it. You need to make plans for yourself so you get something to do, something to look forward to. That's what I'm going to do. So the fact that I'm through with my rambling, I hope I made some sense today. If not, just chalk it up to a bad week and next week will be better. So I'll see you then. Take care. Bye.